What's up, Hardly Typical Podcast family? It is your favorite duo, Dr. Terisha Lee, Dr. Lamar Hardwick here. We are glad that you chose to join us again. Dr. Lee, how's it going? How you feeling?
Hey, I'm feeling good today. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I got the sniffles, so y'all excuse me. But other than that, I'm feeling good. Just if I mute, that's because I'm sniffling and I don't want y'all to hear it. But otherwise, I'm good.
It's all right. We've all had to muscle through the sniffles at least once in our life.
Yeah, and those kind of end of summer, right before fall kind of cold sniffles, those are like the worst. But yeah, I'm doing a lot better than I was when I had what caused the sniffles, so I'm good. But how's the Lead 3 doing? Any news on the front? Still getting adjusted to school?
Listen, the Lead 3 be Lead 3-ing, okay?
Oh, we need a t-shirt that says it.
That's what they do, okay? What brings me hope and joy deep down in my heart, Lamar, is the fact that today, on this here exact day that we are recording this podcast, there is exactly 98 days till Christmas. And my soul is singing, hallelujah!
Lord, for all y'all.
That's what I want to talk about.
Christmas fanatics, which I learned my co-host is one of y'all. Good Lord, she knows how many days there are. Hey, I'm not going to rob your joy. I'm not going to rob the joy of baby Jesus from you. So
please don't. Don't do it.
Press on, press on. I feel a little bit not as spiritual as you because I'm not into Christmas like that. And I feel like I should be because it's Jesus' birthday.
Everybody should be. Everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for making me feel unholy. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Way to start off the podcast, Dr. Lee, by making me feel right? I feel so unworthy now. I feel like a filthy rag.
No. See, we had to bring that information because that's only confirmation of how dope this episode's about to be.
Okay. Well, while we're talking, I'll be secretly praying. I thought I was saved, but I'm
there you go.
Get saved again during this episode just in case.
Yeah, there you go. I've got some bottled water here.
Yeah,
I'm going to sprinkle at the screen.
I discovered I don't love Christmas as much as you do, and that might say something about my relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I need to fix that. We got a special guest on the podcast today. Dr. Lee, can you introduce our special guest?
Oh my goodness, we definitely have to talk about this. We have to. All right now, Hardly Typical family, I need you to lean in with me, okay? Get a little closer to the screen, get a little closer to the speakers. Let's talk about this, okay? Because in a time when diversity is being attacked and dismissed as divisive, it's more important than ever to have real conversations about diversity, what that actually means, especially for people with disabilities.
Yes.
Our guest, Montreece Payton-Hardy, is a passionate disabilities advocate, speaker, and former director of diversity, equity, training, and engagement. As a blind Black woman, she brings lived experience and professional insight to the challenges and the beauty of celebrating diversity in every space.
Yes.
Will y'all please clap your hands wherever you are, whenever you're listening to this, as we welcome our distinguished guest in the Mrs. Montreece Payton-Hardy.
Now, if you drive and keep your hands on the wheel, but you can clap in your heart.
Stay focused. What is it? 3 and 9?
Yeah.
10 and 2.
10 and 12 or whatever.
10 and 2
is it 10 and 2? I said 10 and 12. Look at me. I'm all wrong. That's why we got you on Montreece. That's why we got Montreece. Because I'm all the way wrong.
You know the cool drivers, we just stay at 6.
Y'all are so funny. I haven't driven in over 6 years, too. So that's coming from memory.
Yes.
Oh, my
God.
Montreece,
Welcome
we're so happy
to the
to have
podcast.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
that is the warmest welcome I have had to date. My goodness. Thank you so much. I am honored to be sitting here with you both. Y'all are amazing. And this is a huge blessing. So thank you.
Awesome.
Before we get started, I just want to say how much fun I had sitting with y'all at the dinner. We were all at the Disabilities in the Church conference, and we sat at the table together, and listeners, we were cutting up. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to tell you what we were talking about.
We had a good
But
time.
we were having a good old time. So I appreciate your friendship, Montreece. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hardwick. And likewise, I have enjoyed also since then just following both of your journeys. Y'all have been blowing all kinds of things up on social media. So I'm excited for what the Lord is doing in your lives and this podcast. I am overjoyed right now. So yay, let's go.
Listen, well, let's dive in because we know a conversation with you is not only gonna enrich us, but we know our listeners really need to hear this. You've got some amazing information. You've got some lived experiences. And we always say here, we're gonna say it once, we're gonna say it twice. We're gonna say it at least 3 times per podcast. We're not just building a podcast, but we're building a community.
Absolutely.
So we want to better our community, and we know that you and the information you have can better it. So let's go and dive right in, right? Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so me being the practical theologian that I am, we got to start with some statistics. Let's do it, right? So over 21% of working age adults with disabilities are unemployed. 21%. And that may have changed. This statistic, So we'll say roughly 21%. How about that? But often it's due to inaccessible workplaces and biases. So how does the attack on diversity efforts worsen this statistical number?
Yeah. Ooh, let me process that. And I know those numbers are going up, honestly, weekly. How does the attack on diversity worsen these numbers? The bottom line, from what I have seen in the conversations that I've had, is that when you take away access and these types of opportunities, or you make things more challenging for people who live with disabilities in terms of the workplace, you're impacting so much more than just that particular individual and their career. Like there's so much that's being impacted. The community is being impacted. That individual's families that they may be taking care of, they're impacted. Schools are impacted. So one thing that I've noticed here, particularly, I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and I moved here specifically for the opportunity to work with, of course, the American Printing House for the Blind. And with everything that happened, my opportunity to continue in that work, that was taken away from me to the master's degree. I can express it that way now. And I understand why that decision had to be made, but here's what ended up happening and who ended up being impacted by that. There were so many people, different ones who lost, with transportation. There's been a lot of changes and challenges with transportation in this city with the entire change of the political regime, all of the budgeting challenges that have come with that. Specifically, access transportation. So here, access transportation is called TARC 3. And then city buses, that's called TARC. Well, with the budget changes, there's about a 50% cut in the budget.
Wow.
For all things for public transportation, which means that TARC 3 is instantly and devastatingly going to be hit. In fact, it already has been. I actually have a friend who lived in a space where they were now not going to be able to have TARC 3 access. And they were planning on selling their house just so that they could move in closer so they would still be able to use transportation services for their children's school, after school activities, and all of those things. All because the attack on diversity, also known as the attack on accessibility, is just, it's hitting in all of these different spaces, and it is fully impacting whole families. And if those families can't get to work, different ones, they can't get to work, the students can't get to school attendance is being impacted. So I'm hoping I'm answering the question, but it's
no, you are definitely
aspect of life, every aspect.
Definitely. So here's a fun layer to add to that, right? Even though that's a weird way of adding fun to something. So I too am from Louisville, Kentucky, born and raised. So I know all about TARC. And TARC is actually a very reliable system compared to other transit and public systems. I think I've lived in about 7 US states. So I know transportation. And as a matter of fact, when I was growing up, TARC used to only charge you 25 cents if you were a student. And it was free in the summer for kids under 18. It was so bad that I went to other cities. I thought everything was called a TARC. I was like, well, where do y'all TARCs run? And they were like, what's a TARC? I was like, oh, that's not what it's called? I didn't know it was an acronym because I grew up there. That's what everybody called it. It's Transit Authority of River City.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're saying a well-working, established system is now being basically picked apart, like not only are just the parents, the adults, the kids rely on that system too. Me and my friends used to ride TARC back and forth to high school, back and forth to football games, different things like that. So even when we think we're just affecting one population, you're absolutely right. We're affecting the entire community.
Yeah.
Because the access just to transportation alone, the access to the transportation is being cut. That means that families, individuals like myself, we can't engage in what else is happening in the community. This also means that churches are essentially being impacted because now their parishioners,
you got it.
They're not going to be able to show up, and they're missing out on engaging with them. So it's affecting everything.
And that's part of the problem, isn't it? That when you are unraveling a lot of these services because you think you're getting at, and I'll say this because they think, the people who made these decisions, they think they're getting at some type of way of making our society better by eliminating these things. You also realize that you have people who are making these decisions that it would have never directly impacted them in such a way that is impacting our community. And so, but then it's also a very telling it's a very telling sign that when those decisions are made, it's obvious that there were no people with disabilities who were
in the room in the
making. Exactly. Right. Yeah. And so like you can tell that they didn't consult anybody from our community because it's impacting us in ways that they maybe didn't conceive of. I want to hope that they didn't sit around and say, we're hoping this will happen to the disability community. I don't know that for a fact, but it is. And so regardless of whether it was intentional or not, we know that there was no intentionality as far as giving people with disabilities and their families access to those discussions before those decisions were made. Yeah,
exactly. Which is only creating more ableism, to be honest. And I'm not going to go. I'm not going to get on that soapbox, but it's only driving that much more and creating that much more ableism.
Absolutely. And it's classist. I heard the same thing from Pastor in Concord in Dallas, Pastor Carter, as well as Friendship West. What's the name of that pastor?
Freddie Haynes.
Freddie Haynes. So Pastor Haynes and Pastor Carter were actually going to city meetings when I was in Dallas for a different reason at a conference. They were going to city meetings because they were trying to cut the public transportation system. And they had nobody from the side of town that they were cutting public transportation systems from on the committee. And I believe it was so disproportionate, like 60% of the money that was actually paying the public transit was coming from that part of town. And that's where they were cutting all the bus stops, the coverings, the routes. So this isn't just a localized thing.
No.
No, it's not.
Most of y'all are probably wondering why in the middle of the interview we changed our wardrobe. That's because we had a couple of technical difficulties. So this is kind of a second part of the recording to the same interview with Montreece. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, not ignore that, so that you know that we know that this is not what we were wearing 30 seconds ago. But let's continue this interview. We were saying so many good things, but one of the things that I wanted to know as, someone with a disability, someone with newly found physical disabilities due to my cancer over the last couple of years, I wanted to know, like, how does your disability, how does your vision impairment and your disability shape your approach to advocacy and faith?
That's a really great question. So, one thing that I have learned, well, I'll start with the faith piece. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7 is my favorite. It always was at the top of my list, but it truly is my absolute favorite scripture. I walk by faith and not by sight. It has become my actual literal life. And there is a joy. There is so much learning. There is so much to be taught and so much to be said about the testimony of the blind navigating this world. And then what can happen depending on who you are. For me, definitely what has happened with developing more vision, spiritual vision and insight in how I navigate this world and people, how I love people, how I treat people. It is more informed by spiritual vision than anything that I see, which is hilarious to me because 2 Samuel 16 verse 7 was one of my devotional scriptures today, that talks about it matters not what it looks like. Man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart, right?
Yeah.
And correct me, Pastor, if I got that wrong, but
no, that's right.
I truly believe that since this diagnosis has equipped me with a new way to experience people and allow them to experience me. One of the things that kind of connects and intersects with those thoughts is language, the importance of language and how I express myself and how do I explain my experience. So, for example, and I hope that we won't take this the wrong way. I know that everyone is learning, including I myself. I'm constantly learning, lifelong learner when it comes to navigating life with disability, especially in the church. But I no longer call myself, I very, very, very rarely call myself vision impaired. If I ever refer to myself as vision impaired or visually impaired, it is only to try to meet a person where they are with understanding what my experience is. For the most part, I will say low vision, blind and low vision, because that is the accurate description of what I am experiencing. I primarily do that to help others who may be experiencing what I am experiencing to remember empowering language. So low vision is the description of what I'm going through, not impairment. I am not broken or weakened. And I appreciate learning that language from the blind community and taking that back to different ones, even in the church. You would be so surprised how many people I have met, including my own grandmother, who was diagnosed with glaucoma after me, who I've been able to help with navigating this space and helping her to understand how to speak about what she's experiencing, how to feel empowered, how to advocate for herself, what she needs, and then also how to when the opportunity presents itself, how to advocate for others. I've had those opportunities through all of this. So I'm hoping that I'm answering the question. I feel like I went off a little bit, but when you said faith
and advocacy, I do like the language part because I actually did say vision impairment. So thank you for teaching me. Even as I was asking that question, I used the term that you said that you no longer use. So I am also learning, and I'll definitely keep that in mind. I think one of the reasons why that resonated with me is because language is a huge thing in the disability community. Like people are always sort of, I don't want to say battling over what terms to use, but there's definitely a fierce sense of ownership over what I choose to be called or how I choose to be identified. And I know that's even intensified in the autism community. So that's why I'm super sensitive to that as someone who's autistic, because that's like the biggest thing. I'll tell you, Montreece, when I was first diagnosed, that was probably the thing that was the most overwhelming is I didn't know what to tell people because there were so many different representations of language. And you had this group saying, no, say this, and this group saying, no, identify like this, and this group saying, no, you should tell people this. And it was really challenging for me and heartbreaking in some senses to be a new member of this community and to see sort of the lack of unity, not in that people can't be bold in the way that they want to be identified, but the veracity and the vitriol a lot of times that comes into faith not the faith community, the disability community, as we try to advocate. So I appreciate you sharing that part about your journey.
You know, if I may say one more thing on that, and I apologize. Did I completely interrupt your thought?
No, I was done. Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the hardest things about finding language, because I believe that across faiths, there is a language element, and there is a general sense of the idea of Proverbs 18:21, which says death and life are in the power of the tongue, right? And so this is part of the reason why
preaching in the second half, like that's the third scripture you done quoted.
Mm-hmm.
From memory, you just dropping verses. Like, good Lord, you preaching.
Well,
but
my faith is a huge
I
part.
receive the word of God. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I promise you, like it's no, you're good. It's the biggest part of what has brought me so much strength during this season and given me the most guidance with how to persist. So going back to that Proverbs 18:21 with death and life being in the power of the tongue, I believe that you get a sense of that across different faiths and other religions. Like there's some sense of be careful what you say and how you identify, right? And so you're thinking about that, especially if you're a person who your faith guides like almost like a daily basis for you. And that is what created the challenge and the difficulty for me. I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to say these different things? And then here's an interesting thing. At some point, it became less about what I am speaking to explain my experience and more just about, I need to make sure that I'm clear on other people also understanding and honoring what my experience is, so that when I go into a space, the respect is established, but then also there is like some sort of clarity on what I am going to bring to the table. And so like, to kind of answer in a part to your question, I also believe that when it comes to blindness, it allows you, ironically, but it allows you to see that which other people are overlooking all the time. All the time. I feel like I'm constantly pointing out, especially when it comes to operations. Another friend of mine who deals with a whole other disability, we were talking about how many people, many disabled people with consultancies tend to get involved somehow in operations because we experience so much of everywhere we go, rules, regulations, and logistics. Those things impact our experience, right? I'm not going to get started on airplanes and airports, but that's just to name one. So
we might need to circle back around to
that. Okay.
Yeah.
But like I feel like I'm constantly bringing like the thought of and the perspective of what was overlooked in this space. How could we have done a little bit different and done a little bit better? And what can be challenged so that we can use that information to review and improve so that everyone is having an equitable experience, even in the church space. I really hope that I'm answering that question.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. I love to hear your perspective. So I have to throw this at you. If you're seeing it and you're looking at it in a systemic way, what's one of the main things you see churches overlooking?
Question.
That's such a good question.
She's like,
I heart
so
you,
many
my friend.
things.
I'm making heart hands. That's such a good question. So what's one of the things that what's really interesting, y'all? She might get a little bit upset with me. So Terisha, you got a chance to meet my daughter. The both of you did actually, at this last conference for disability in the church. And my daughter, my son too, they are constantly going on about their frustration with us being a family that comes in. People are not knowing that, how long we've been walking with the Lord and what we know and what we would love to bring to the table. They just see us as a mom who looks broken or something and two young people. And there's instantly a judgment of, okay, we're going to put them in the back. We're going to put them in the side. There's very little curiosity. There is instant judgment about my competence. People ask my children questions all the time at church, coming right inside, coming up and visiting any church. People ask my children, they direct their questions to me, not realizing that I can partially see them.
Right.
And I see
and you
them
can hear.
seeing my children. And I can hear. And I can hear. So there's assumptions about my ability and also what my family ought to experience in our visit to church today versus leading with curiosity and asking us where we would like to go, how we would like to, any of those things. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does, because you're absolutely right. I think those assumptions can be really dangerous. I think that is something that goes across the board. At one point, it's no secret, everybody knows about the lead 3. And it just so happens I had the lead 3 in 14 months, 2 pregnancies, 3 children. So at one point, my husband and I, oh my gosh, I don't recommend it. They're amazing blessings, but you can spread it out a little bit more. At one point, just to get a break, my husband would give me like Tuesday nights off. He would take the kids, and I was big and pregnant, but I would go to Bible study. So every Tuesday I would waddle myself into Bible study and just sit, get the word, stop and eat something afterwards that I didn't have to share. And I remember there was one lady in particular who was really, really nice to me. She was always checking on me and all that. And she eventually ended up saying to me, "You remind me of myself. I too was a single teen mom, and I saw you coming into church every night by yourself. And I just knew that I had to, love on you." And at the time, you guys, Lord forgive me, I was so shocked that she said it. I didn't even correct her. I just was like, and it was, I was just kind of paused there. It wasn't until later I introduced her to my husband and my children, and she was like, "Oh my God,
you remind me of myself.
Lord help us.
Young, black, teenage, unwed mother on crack." Just like, just go throw all the stereotypes at me.
We're gonna put it all in there, and that's what you are, because you're here, you're showing up every Tuesday night by yourself. I said, "Girl, I'm getting a break." But that leads me to say, for people who have a disability, who may not have a disability, who have experienced that assumption, and they've been hurt by that, they've been broken by that. I just saw a story today of a lady who came into church. Her son was having a bit of a fit, so she bent down to pick him up, and her skirt hiked up a bit. And the first thing they said to her was, "Can you pull your dress back down?" It was right above her knee. It wasn't offensive. But I say that to say, what can we say to those people who may have been offended, who may say, "You know what? I don't want to go back to church. I'm already dealing with a disability or a different ability. I'm already dealing with your judgment. I don't want to deal with this." Do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for them?
I would just honestly say, one, not only lead with curiosity, but don't be afraid to have a conversation with someone like myself. Someone who is very boldly walking in life with disability and excited most of the time. I am excited to help. It is hard to be on all the time and be educating. But most of the time, I'm excited to help anyone get an understanding of the questions that they can ask, how to use their voice, use their words, so that they can help someone else have, again, an equitable experience. And then not only will I be happy to share some insights, but I will also remind people, we were literally actually just talking about this with my Bible study fellowship this last week. I believe that it's important for people to realize that internalized ableism is a thing. There's so many words and things that happen with all of us. And there's a constant learning that's happening. Even we, the people who are living with disabilities, mind you, over 80% of people living with disabilities, and I think we all know, I can't remember if I quoted that on this particular show, but over 80% of people who are living with disabilities actually got them later in life. They weren't born with it. Whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And because of that, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn about what to say, what not to say, what not to do, all of the things. And so it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to own that mistake. Try the best to not necessarily be embarrassed. This is not the time for your pride and your ego and it to just take stage. It's a time for, oh, okay, that's a data point. I got that. I won't be making that mistake anymore. If I may, for the both of you, I'm going to share it on this podcast because I literally just brought this up. It's one of my favorite stories to share to help other people to get really comfortable with the uncomfortable. Okay. People always say to me, "I don't want to ask the wrong question. I wasn't sure if I need to grab you." Y'all would be surprised how many people have hurt me. Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, ushers at church, because they assume that I'm going to fall and they grab me quickly. And because I didn't know if I should say anything. I'm like, my bro.
Oh my gosh.
This would have been like, these ears are still working. You don't see any.
Right.
You don't see any. Say something.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me get back to my quick little story. So I believe my may still remember this. I was at an event and I was doing this with the American Foundation for the Blind. I was in their leadership development fellowship program. This was in, I think, 2022. And I was speaking to a colleague of mine who, at the time, I completely forgot that he was totally blind. And I sure did tell him to reach over and grab that black bag over there. I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I said that. And he said, what? And I said, yeah. And he was like, yeah, you already know. And I was like, just laugh at me. Just laugh at me. And also know that I had no intentions of being disrespectful in that moment. Like, there are so many times when I'm around different spaces where I completely don't even remember that there is any challenge, or I don't even want to say it as a challenge, but honestly, just the difference. There's sometimes where I might forget the differences that my people are working with around me, because we all navigate so well and we mask so well.
Yeah.
So, and it's not to say that that's their fault. It's just that there's so much that's happening. I've got the neurodivergence happening too. So I'm just trying to remember all the things in the space. He totally understood. I have no problem telling that story because I want more people to feel comfortable being uncomfortable, just admitting when you're wrong, and then be willing to change it. You know what? How could I have said that better? And I've learned that over time with asking different people with blindness, those with some low vision like myself, those who are totally blind, those who are dealing with other eye diseases. How could I have said that a little bit better or a little bit differently?
It's letting go of that illusion. Letting go of that illusion of perfection.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. Because there is no perfection. Yeah.
Right.
There is no perfection.
And I know you want to
Everyone's
do everything
going to
right,
make a mistake.
say everything right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would
but
love
it doesn't
to
exist.
walk out the door and not make any mistakes, but it's going to happen.
It absolutely
like
is.
you said, let go of the ego.
Yeah.
You said something about internalized ableism, and I think that's a topic probably that could be a whole other show.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
But it's something that I dealt with. I even wrote about in my most recent book, How Ableism Fuels Racism.
Yes.
And I wrote about it in
book.
a chapter about work. And to be honest with you, I'm still sort of working through it because we were raised. So first of all, there's some ways in which I think growing up in our community helped shape or at least set the groundwork for internalized ableism. And I'm not blaming the Black community. I think it's the result of colonization and white supremacy and a lot of other things that made it difficult for us to deal with disability head on and to deal with the internalized ableism that sometimes happens in our communities and happens a lot in our churches. But I did talk about it, and I'll try to keep this short. I did talk about it because when I found that I was no longer able to do things at the pace that I used to do them and quote unquote use my body as a tool to produce content and intellectual property that people seem to want to consume, I started to feel some kind of way about my own body, and about the goodness of my own body and the worthiness of my own body, the body that God gave me. But it was a real struggle. I'm a much better place now, but I'll just say that when you said that, it sort of triggered something, not in a bad way, that it was a struggle to face the fact that I saw myself as less worthy and less valuable when I wasn't able to use my body to produce, when I was too tired to write, when I was too tired to do public speaking, engage, like all the things that I was able to use my body to do, to offer things to the world, when I wasn't able to do that at the pace that I used to do, or even now in some situations, not at all. I found myself, I'm just going to be real. I found myself hating my own body and being very, very hard on myself. and only to realize that was internalized ableism. It was and is the ways in which we are taught by society to only value bodies that can produce and offer things that bring us information or pleasure or entertainment, right? And once your body's not able to do those things, we sort of have no real place for you in society. And so, yeah, when you said that, it triggers something, not in a bad way, but just helping people to also, as we talk about this, dig into that and really deal with it. Like I said, that's probably a whole other podcast episode that we probably should bring you back for, just to talk about that. But yeah,
that would be good.
I would love that, because I'm not going to go fully into it. Just to whet the appetite, I will say this. I actually did present on a prayer line, a virtual prayer line, about this topic. I didn't necessarily go into the internalized ableism, but I did speak to the challenge that it is to have blindness, where we see all through the Bible specifically, people constantly being healed from blindness. Therefore, this is something to be healed from. And similar to the apostles when they asked, about the blind man, who sinned?
Right.
And thinking that there's a curse that is, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's just a constant pejorative, a constant negative connotation that is attached to this. And so when you are a person of faith and you are still persisting in that faith, but you're also persisting in this life, at what point do you really decide in your mind, I'm not cursed? I'm not, just because it hasn't happened for me yet doesn't mean that it's not ever going to happen for me. And then the entire internalized ableism roller coaster that comes with that. So I won't go into it right now, but that was an interesting conversation. It wasn't I don't believe it was a lot of smiles and claps and standing ovation for that, because it makes you think, why can't two things be true? Why can't a person love God, be used of God, and also present with disability? Paul did.
Yeah.
Jacob did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
We're having therapy and church at the same time. I feel like I need to take up an offering for the right Reverend Montreece.
Okay,
you
we're
are
definitely
so
going to need
funny.
a part 2 of this discussion.
Y'all are
absolutely
hilarious.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your candidacy, Dr. Hardwick. I appreciate you sharing your story, because it resonates so much. I'm not going to get emotional here, but I understand to a massive degree. I understand in my own way. Thank you.
That, as a profession and the things that you were trying to accomplish. So I do want to go back to talking about diversity. There's a lot of, I think, for me, misunderstanding about what that is, what DEI is, why it's important. So before we kind of wrap up, can we just kind of shift gears, go back to that? Because I think part of it is going back to not allowing that the language of DEI, the mission of DEI, the intentions of DEI to be hijacked and to be given new meaning and be given language that is adjacent to it, that is not necessarily representative of what it actually was designed to do. So can you say a little bit about people that misunderstand it and what it actually is, and why we need to keep fighting for representing it in a correct way?
I will do my best. So
I know that's a big question.
So specifically diversity, equity, and inclusion, is I was a part of a department that we actually, and I love that we use the entire acronym of ABIDE, which is access, belonging, inclusion, diversity, and equity. Why do all these words? Like, why does it all matter? For me, if we want to just simplify it, I don't want to oversimplify it, but ultimately, if we're thinking through, what are all the best ways that we can acknowledge, recognize, celebrate, and learn more, try to understand every human being's experience that we come in contact with, especially within the workplace and within school, then that speaks to the importance of DEI. It is going to push you to do that. Diversity, looking at diversity, when you have a value of diversity that's part of company, organization, institution, it makes you look at, okay, wait, is there homogeny here? Or do we really have diversity? Do we have it in our leadership? Which is another question I actually wanted to ask y'all. Do we see it reflected in our leadership? And how is that affecting or not affecting us? With equity, I always think of equity. For me, I'm always thinking of equity in terms of learning opportunities. I don't know why I do that, but I think I do. I think it's just because I tend to train. And when I train, when I am creating an educational experience for a group, I personally want to do everything that I can to make sure that everyone in the space has an equitable learning experience. All the materials and any activity, anything, any piece of it is accessible to that person in the way that is easily digestible for them. That is what equity is about mostly for me. And then as far as inclusion, it's similar. I believe that I have always been the type, because I've often advocated for others in various spaces, just to make sure that, well, did we include everybody? Has everyone's voice been heard in thus and so? Again, for me, this really points to leadership. I tend to have a focus on leadership. And so it's leaders who are the decision makers and the final decision makers when it comes to the spending of dollars and policy and all of those things, right? So for me, I'm thinking, okay, well, we're all voices included in that decision making, or are they taking all of that into consideration? There was a lot of decision making that was made when the budget challenges and so on recently came up, and it felt the way that everything was done, even with the work that I had to do to advocate, and me and my colleague to pull the TARC administration in so they could come into my organization at the time, which was American Printing House for the Blind, to sit and talk with us, because our employees were going to be impacted, not just our employees, but their families, their children were going to be heavily impacted by any changes with routing, funding, and all of those things when it comes to this particular service. Have they heard from all the voices? And what is the impact when you have heard from all the voices? Are you listening to all of the voices? That's where the inclusive piece comes in. Right. And so, and I can't help, I'm going to wrap this up, but I can't help but go back to Abide, because when you have the emphasis on access, and for different organizations and for different practitioners, that A can mean a number of things. Sometimes it's access or accessibility. Sometimes it's anti-racism. For me, it is access and accessibility, because you cannot do diversity, equity, inclusion without thinking about the human being's physical, mental experience, and the fact that that is different from person to person, and it needs to be taken into account with their work performance, with their education performance and experience, and so on, even with their parenting experience. So I'm hoping that I touched on a bit to answer your question, but that's the reason why I believe that DEI, specifically Abide, access, belonging, inclusion, diversity, and equity, create a space for belonging, help people to see that your space is one where they belong. You're not just opening it up to them because you feel obligated. No, they belong in your space, and you want to hear that you do actually see them. To live that is to live values that I truly believe we should all be striving for, just to make sure that each person that we encounter hopefully is a little bit better when they've come in contact with us than right before they came to us. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. See, there you go. Preaching and teaching. The whole hour. Yes. Come on. So we have to throw this back to our Hardly Typical listeners. We cannot end this without asking, how are you showing up? How are you showing up for diversity in your workplace, in your church, in your community? We encourage you, we charge you to speak up, to show up, make room. True diversity reflects the heart of God, and that includes people with different abilities. Let's be the ones who remind the world diversity isn't divisive, it's divine. Thank you so much, Montreece, for being with us. The Hardly Typical community is going to love this. I can't wait for them to hear. They're going to like and share and definitely leave your comments. We got to flood her inbox with love. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. We appreciate the knowledge, the preaching, and the teaching. We are better for this hour.
Yeah.
I'm better for coming. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah. And as always, as Dr. Lee said, make sure you hit that subscribe and share button, and make sure that you stay tuned for the next episode of the Hardly Typical podcast. And remember, we're not just trying to build a podcast, we're trying to build a community. So we want to hear from you, and we want to stay connected in this community. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you later.